You are consenting to the recording, retention, and future viewing of this meeting. This meeting is also being live streamed as a convenience to the public. In the event the live stream fails or cannot be transmitted for any reason, the in-person meeting will continue without interruption. Roll call, Carrie, please.
Danielle Brenneman. Here. Mary Brenneman. Here. Jeannie Ewan. Here. Brian Lawyer.
Here.
Nick Lovell.
Here.
Janelle Ressler. Here. Wayne Sullivan.
Here.
Carl Thompson.
Here.
Stephen Yurgich.
Here.
Okay, we already had the Pledge of Allegiance, so technically we don't have to do it again. It is time for public comment. We recognize the members of the public who have signed up to provide comment as stipulated in Policy 903. When your name is called, please approach the podium, state your name, confirm you are a resident or a taxpayer in the district and topic of discussion for the record. Please direct your comments to the board as a whole, not an individual. We ask that you limit your comments to 5 minutes or less. The privilege to speak may be interrupted, revoked, or a recess of the meeting may be called by the chair if the speaker does not observe reasonable form and orderly conduct. Thank you. And Susan Johnson is up.
All right. Everyone knows my name is Suzanne Johnson, and I'm a district parent, resident, taxpayer, and voter. I think it's extremely frustrating that between you guys and the council, you can't work out to make sure your meetings don't overlap. That's a shame. But anyway, that's not what my comments were really directed to tonight. I'm most concerned about the brash disregard of the open government laws that has been displayed by LASD officials at last month's regular board meeting when discussing right-to-know law requests that failed to produce more than one email between board members in over 6 months. The board president indicated that the solicitor has advised the school board members to, quote, always delete them from the top, all of them. Then you don't have to give anything to anybody. According to the PA Office of Open Records, FAQs, quote, it's improperly deleting or destroying agency records before or after a right-to-know law request has been filed could result in a bad faith finding by a court or in criminal charges where appropriate. As I expressed back in September, it's very disturbing that you guys want to celebrate right-to-know law appeal findings as successful because there were no records to provide as a result of deleting records. In my opinion, it isn't a win for voters if the school district's standard operating practice is to delete records in order to avoid disclosure. That isn't the intent of laws put in place to ensure open government. And why is the school district trying so hard to avoid transparency? Those that have nothing to hide, hide nothing. I find it ironic that the board plans to pass the updated Policy 801 public records this month when you delete records so there isn't anything to turn over when a right-to-know law request is submitted. You're also looking to pass Policy 830.1, data governance and storage and security. And last month you passed Policy 800, records management, which both refer to a record management plan. I don't know what's in that plan, but it's supposed to include a records retention schedule. So I don't know, is there a record retention schedule for emails that you aren't following because you just delete them from the top? What is the backup and recovery plan for emails if you're just deleting them? What is the backup and recovery plan to protect against unintentional or intentional data loss as a result of deleting emails? Now to turn to additional spending being requested this month for the high school, middle school facility grant. The district is getting $500,000 from the grant, but is also requesting an additional $2.9 million from capital reserves to replace the 1990s windows, the blue gym HVAC, and ground floor HVAC and pneumatic system upgrades. I get the 1990 windows and blue gym HVAC. Those were alternates that were cut from the building project last year due to funding concerns. However, the ground floor HVAC and pneumatic system upgrades weren't a high enough priority to be even considered a project alternate last year, so I'm not sure why it's such a priority this year to spend over $1.25 million on that now. And what was cut from the scope of those basement projects to reduce the estimate by over $1 million? For the ACES facility grant, the district will get another $500,000, but is requesting another $1.5 million from capital reserves to replace the ACES HVAC systems, but you've decided to defer, looks like, roof coating as part of the project for now to reduce spending. So when would that coating need to be done? Last month, you opted to transfer $3.2 million of the taxpayers' money that was surplus from last year's budget to capital reserves, and none of it to the ACTI building project, which all of you agree is an important investment. Keep in mind that for each $500,000 that you spend on capital projects, that's the equivalent of one annual ACTI building project payment, given the expectation that we will be responsible for $10 million over 20 years. Are each of these additional capital projects being requested that total $3.4 million worth of projects, which will be the equivalent of nearly 7 years worth of ACTI investment? Is that really the best use of money? Could that money have been used, the money that was already collected, been used for ACTI instead of asking for tax increases and new tax revenue to cover at least part of the $10 million project that's upcoming? Thank you.
Gil, you're up. All right. I apologize, I'm going to turn my back to you folks. Sorry, Gil.
Pardon me?
I'm going to turn my back to you. It's not.
Oh, that's okay. I prefer you look at that instead of me. There's our statistics that we do every month. We are on target for the 17th right now. The completion date, phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 completion dates haven't changed. I'm not sure if they will or not. I'm going to hope that they don't. Contract duration is still 26 months, and right now we're in month 15, and we're approaching the time when we might pick up another lost weather day or two since it's winter. And tonight we're probably going to be mostly in this area, talking about what's going on in this area, since that's the first area that's going to be turned over. Go ahead, Carrie. Okay, so we have the boiler room piping wiring is basically complete. Startup and testing of the boilers has been completed, the new boilers. Gas regulators are installed. The gas supply line, the new line is complete and it's been certified by Columbia Gas. Concrete floors in the new addition have been polished. They'll be repolished at just before occupation, but the first polishing has been done. Window frames and glass are probably 90%. When I wrote this, it was last week, or probably a little bit more than that right now. We're just about totally glassed in. The new stairs, the main stairs in the athletic lobby up to the first floor have been poured and polished. Exterior doors and glass are pretty well all completed now, but let's hold it at that. New sidewalks, about 90% completed. They just finished pouring some here at the end of last week. The new front entrance and bus loop have been installed. The base coat of concrete has been, asphalt has been completed. The new parking lot in the front has the base and the finish coat of asphalt on it, and it's been lined. Flagpole has been installed. The stairs around the flagpole are in. Plumbing rough-ins in that building C are completed, with very few exceptions. Ductwork, reheat coils, and classroom drops for the air conditioning are about 90% complete. First floor is pretty well all completed. The second floor is probably 2/3 completed. Phase 1 rooftop air handlers are all installed and piped. Sprinkler piping are about 90% complete. They're finishing up on the second floor now. Main electrical service is completed and ready for Med-Ed to install the primary transformer. They installed the pole today, and the transformer will be in by the end of the week. So that eliminates that situation that we had. New electrical room and the new gear on the inside is completed. They're doing some final wiring. And ECI will be putting up the concrete wall around that new electric room to separate it from what used to be the graphic arts area. Painting is continuing on all floors. Casework installation has begun on the first floor. The office areas, the nurses area, and some of the classrooms are getting casework in. The science rooms are getting some casework in. Issues resolved. Well, the gas regulators installed, gas lines complete. Med-Ed, that's actually changed. Med-Ed is now working on the primary transformer installation. Right now, we don't have any issues outstanding, which is good. Costs have progressed, as you can see there. Original project cost, net change by change orders is up to, boy, my allergies are really doing well today. What is that, 298,000?
96.
86.
96.
96. That still represents less than 1%, and change orders typically run 3 to 5, so we're doing pretty good there. Pay apps and approved to date, you can see that number there. A little bit more than halfway through. Okay, project photos. That is the top of what I like to call the grand staircase from the athletic lobby up. They've since painted that wall on your right and the left. It's looking pretty decent right now. Next slide. There's the first coat of paint on it. That line that you see right here is actually a return that, for some reason, the architect put in to match the old building wall. The old building wall comes in from the one side there, from the left. Next slide. That's your multi-purpose room. The soundboards are up. The ductwork has been raised to get the fabric duct into the space between the joists. That room is about as far along as it's going to be for right now. I believe we're planning on using that for some temporary furniture storage as they move the new furniture into the building prior to the new floor going down in there. Next slide. That's the team rooms in the lower level, the new lockers going in for the team rooms. Next slide. That's your cardio weight area. This is the ductwork, the spiral duct that's in there. That's basically a large open area. There's no ceiling in there. It's just a painted ceiling with the duct and the lights hanging. Next slide, please. That's the tile work at the top of the main stairs. And there's an offset there just to the right of where the main double doors go into the existing lobby. Downstairs, it looks a lot like that, except the figure on the right is actually Littlestown L. Next slide, please. That's the first floor corridor. That's looking west towards the outside of the building. That's the stairwell there that goes between all 3 floors. I'm standing outside the hallway to the administrative area for the building. Next slide, please. That is the reception area. All this door assembly here is new. Those are all your new doors. The piece that's not finished on the right is the reception desk. Next slide, please. That is that's the entrance, the interior entrance doors. I'm standing in what I'm going to call the secure entranceway, and then you have the entrance for the public when you have public events to let people in and out and to let the students out in the afternoon. That would be a project room between, I think it's the science rooms on the 2nd floor. That's going to be like the work rooms between the rooms. There's 2 between each pair of rooms. Next slide, please. There you can see some casework being installed in the biology on the 2nd floor. There's like a sink area that goes in between here, and then these casework on either side of it. Next slide, please. That's when we started the new front circle. That's the excavation that was being done for it. Next slide, please. There's the front circle as of the 25th, before Thanksgiving. This is the parking area, and then the circle goes around the parking area. Next slide, please. That is your athletic entrance doors going into and this is your clear story above where the main stair goes up. Next slide, please. That is the west face of the new addition, Building C. There's panels that go up over this ephes over here, and then you can see the brickwork and some of the painting, the windows going in. That would be, if you face the athletic entrance, that's the area to the right. Next slide, please. That's the secondary transformer that's installed and being wired. This is the main switchgear here, and this open area here will be, right now, the generator. They put the generator in on Friday. That's sitting there now. So that's all, this is all closed up now and finished. We're just waiting for Med-Ed to sit the transformer on the pad that's further off to the right. Next slide, please. All right, these are the, what I always do, we put the building progress photos on. So Carrie, you can just kind of flip through those. That's the first one from last May. There's June. There's August. There is September and October. And there's November, and you can see the progress being made there. Probably by the next time, the metal pieces will be up on the building, and it'll pretty much look a lot like what the architect's rendering is. And that's it. Any questions?
Any questions? Thank
Nope.
you.
Thank you. Now I'm going to see if I can remember how to get out of here.
Kioski, you're up.
So just two little things, so obviously, before the holiday, we have conferences, and usually that time, after the conferences, winds up being a busier time for my department, because we get a lot of parents requesting testing.
Yep.
Evaluation, educational testing for their child. So when that happens, our school psychologist, either Gabby Monson or David Willis, depending on what building it is, calls the parents, talks to them, asks them what their concerns are, and then we explain to them the process of getting educational testing. We ask questions, and we'll talk with the building principals as the student has some kind of interventions in the classroom, reading or math interventions, behavioral concerns, and we just talk to parents about that process, and then we collect some data, and then we decide if we're going to move forward with testing or not. So it's all individualized depending on the concern of the student, so that's usually how that process works. So after conferences, it picks up a lot for my department. The other thing that happens in December, which is a happy month for me, it allows me the opportunity to go out to visit our students that are out in other classrooms, autistic classrooms, life skills classrooms, students at Franklin Learning Center, and they do holiday programs, so I get to see them in a different light, see them singing, dancing, whatever, they're happy, excited, and it's just a wonderful thing to see our students out doing those kinds of things. So December makes my heart happy when I get to do that. Any questions?
Do we have any questions for Dr. Kowski? Hearing none. Okay. Dr. Naylor?
From a safety perspective, Safety Officer Lawrence and I met with the building administrators on November 25th with an emphasis on fire alarm protocols, specifically for administrators, safety officers, and as well the maintenance. So what are those individuals doing in the event of an alarm, all the way through to an assessment to resetting and silencing alarm, coordinating as well with any first responders, fire department, so forth and so on. So specifically, what are those individuals working to accomplish in those areas in the event of an alarm? From a technology standpoint, support of meeting that January 17th deadline. 50 access points are prepared and ready to go for contractor installation in the new areas. All the classrooms have at least one access point in it, and the other common areas throughout that new section. And so those are items that are ready to go, and we'll work to support the completion of network and Wi-Fi access in the new areas. Along the same lines, in the 100 section, if you're familiar with Dr. Lewis, Mr. Staub, and Mr. Reed, all with computer labs, we've converted them to MacBook labs. Mr. Reed was the last lab to undergo that phase. And so we have all of those units then ready to go to easily transition into the new section on the 17th as well. That concludes my report.
Thank you. By the way, let me pause for a second because I'm really bad at this, so I'm going to do this because I keep getting yelled at when I go home. Dr. Piasky, Dr. Naylor, Dr. Berryman, and Ms. Young, thank you for your reports because I always forget to thank you. And trust me, I go home and I get it. So before I forget, this way I'll get it done, and I apologize for not doing as much in the past. You're up.
You're welcome. I thought we were going to get yelled at or something when you paused like that. So just as Dr. Piasky said, parent-teacher conferences last week, really pleased with the outcome of that and the number of parents who were able to come in. And if they weren't able to come in, the number of phone calls that were able to be made. You've heard over the last month or so, especially I know Mr. Moran has mentioned it, the work that we're doing with Tier 1. And when we talk about Tier 1, that's what all of our kids get. So the curriculum, the resources, like the PBIS advisory, so what every single kid in our district should get as far as instructional practices, differentiation, making sure they have on grade level access to the curriculum. So we've been doing a lot of work making sure that we're really shoring up our baseline of all of our instructional practices. So later this week, 4 of us, Dr. Becker, Mrs. Golden, Mr. Kokenauer, and myself will be going to the IU to do a half-day workshop, just making sure we're analyzing all of those Tier 1s, and if we're missing anything, like how do we fill in those gaps? And then from there, we will keep strengthening our Tier 2 and Tier 3, and there will be more of that coming at a committee presentation later this year. So we will be working to do more work on that and bringing that to you. And then lastly, this week I'm working with second-year teachers. We will be really focusing on how we're setting high expectations for all of our kids. So that Tier 1, again, like every single kid, what are our expectations? How are we talking to them about our expectations? And how do we hold them accountable for our expectations? So we'll be focusing on that this week, as well as talking about collaboration. And you know this from coming home, and Janelle knows this from being in the business. You cannot do this job, and Brian, sorry. You cannot do this job in isolation. So why it's so important to collaborate, why it's so important not to think that you have all of the answers, and how to be a good team member on your grade level or subject matter team, or on any team that you're on. So those will be our 2 areas of focus. And then first-year teachers, we are going over to New Oxford, and that meeting will focus on how we're using technology for learning, and how are we embedding that in our learning. I know we always hear, like, kids are on computers too much. I think that was brought up at the committee meeting. But it's not really to put them on computers too much, but when they are on a computer, what are they doing and how is it enhancing their learning? So that's what's on our agenda for the next week or 2. So any questions?
Any questions for Dr. Brown? And thank you. I'll make sure I keep reading. Ms. Young, you're up. You can, wherever you feel comfortable.
So as you know, winter sports started November 15th, their preseason. The first kickoff for the boys and girls basketball is tomorrow. So the first official game is tomorrow. Boys are home, girls are away. And wrestling opens up on Thursday at Biglerville. So that's where it's all going to start, and it's not going to end until hopefully a long time, till March. Both basketball and wrestling teams are competing in early season tournaments this weekend. They're also competing in holiday tournaments over Christmas, so they'll be busy over Christmas as well. And all of them are away. For coaching and staff, I'm currently interviewing candidates for the junior high soccer assistant coach position that'll fill up our coaching support staff for the spring. And for community engagement, our basketball team, I'm not sure if everyone knows this, but over the break, they hosted a kids' night out on November 29th. So they babysat all the kids so the parents could go Black Friday shopping. So that was a very neat idea, and they had boys and girls basketball team babysit all the kids in the gym. They played, and the parents went out and shopped. So I thought that was a great way to promote community engagement with our basketball teams. And pretty much goals moving forward, just ensure a smooth transition into the winter season and being attentive to schedules, transportation, and event staffing. That's it.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions?
Questions?
Michelle? Thank you. All right, we're highlight of the evening. The regular meeting. I'm going to pause here for a soapbox session. If you have any comments, concerns, corrections on the board minutes, they need to be given to Carrie prior to the meeting by an email so that we can all review them prior to it. It's unacceptable to bring it to the meeting. If you're noticing it at the last minute, and if you had that problem, then we've got an issue. You were responsible for going over all the information. Tom makes presentations at work sessions. You need to be going over and looking at those presentations and knowing what's going on so that Tom isn't regurgitating exactly what he just said. Or Dr. Berryman regurgitating exactly what she said at her curriculum meeting. It is your responsibility to do it and be prepared for the meetings. It's sort of come to my attention that people are asking questions that were asked at the committee meetings or answered there. You know, if you can't make it, that's fine, but all the information is there. You need to get with the appropriate people so that it's done ahead of time.
Wait, are you saying ask in the work session and not in the regular
No,
session?
I'm asking
Or do email before the work session?
as far as board minutes go, when we get to the voting session,
Okay. Well,
we
it
should be
already been
bringing
asked
that,
for.
right, should already been asked and answered. As far as that goes. In work session, that's when you bring up, ask something from the committee meeting, so that, but it should already, this should be your time to bring it up, not again at the voting session. Unless you have a question, I'm not saying that we're not gonna, that I don't want you to bring it up, but if you need some further clarification,
That's what a work session is.
that's work session, but the voting session, if you still need further clarification even more, that should be done, but it shouldn't be, Tom shouldn't be regurgitating his meeting, his presentation from the committee, then again at the work session, and the third time at the board minutes, at the board, voting session. Okay, that's it? All right. Does anybody have any problems with the board minutes?
Well, we couldn't even look at them.
Yeah.
So the minutes are not linked this
Right.
time around. It was a short week
Right.
last week. So you will all get the minutes in an email tomorrow for your review.
So-
Short week, other workload.
With that said, I would duly ask and hope that we could all have them read and looked over
By the-
prior to meeting, but obviously with the short turnaround for Ms. Mummer, we'll make an exception if something comes up. But,
So you'll have them in your email tomorrow.
yeah, okay, all right.
And you can send your corrections by email back.
Yes, and send your corrections back and send it to all of us so that we can look at it and say, yeah. Okay, Steve, you're up.
All right, any questions on Finance Property Supply Committee report we had committee last week?
I want to know why we can't look at the general fund checks or anything. Why?
Again, short week, and the month hadn't come to an end by the time this was posted. Today's the 2nd, so those post at the end of the month. And those get posted on Friday, so those reports aren't pulled until the next month. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah, it makes
Again,
sense.
the exception is.
So same thing, just
So,
to answer the question about the FMX reports later, those weren't able to be pulled until the 1st, technically. Today's the 2nd, I pulled them on the live document, you would be able to review them now. But this is active as of last Friday.
but here's the problem with that. I understand what you're saying, but like Carl just reiterated, he doesn't want a whole lot of questions in the regular meeting, which is
No,
going to be
no, no,
impossible.
that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you, like the meeting notes for these sessions, that should all be done ahead of time. In this case, This is an exception because we had a tremendous fast turnaround from the end of the month. We never really meet this fast.
This has to be on the
Yes,
first.
this has to be this week.
So you're saying if they're available for the work session, ask her in the work session?
Right, if they're available